everyone, camera one, camera two. Welcome to the Good Place Bench. My name is Robin and delighted to be part here at Utopian Hours. It's a 10-year edition, being the fact that they're hosting it here in Rotterdam because our main event is in Torino, Italy, where they're from. Thanks for Stratospherica. And on the Good Place Bench, I'm hosting conversations with, I call them change makers. Are you a change maker?
I think I'm a change maker. I hope to be a change maker.
Very nice. And what's your name, change maker?
So my name is Khensani Jurczok-de Klerk. It's quite a mouthful of a name. Yes.
We'll add it below.
Yes. And I am a South African, Swiss-based architectural researcher and designer.
Right.
And my practice is really focusing on a socio-spatial approach.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really thinking about the ways in which social life and space intersect. I think about architecture as a storyteller. Nice. And so I do two things. On the one hand, I do quite intensive research through a PhD at the ETH in Zurich, focusing on the ways in which gender and race intersect in the city in the 90s. And I suppose the hat that I'm wearing today, which I wear quite a lot, I'm the founder and creative director of an organization called Matri-Archi.
Okay.
Matri-Archi for short.
Mm-hmm.
And we are a network organization of 26 intergenerational and interdisciplinary African diasporic women who are working across architecture, curation, and arts to really think about our entangled histories, realities, and imaginaries. So our project is interdisciplinary, and we're also thinking about spatial expressions. I have to always mention yes, okay. Spatial expressions, and in that sense, our work is never really fixed in a format. Sometimes we do built work. We're thinking through the scale of pavilions. At the same time, we're very, very active in the art space, working in museum spaces, also working across exhibition, thinking about programming, and also thinking about the digital space as a way of connecting, because we are 26 people scattered across different European and African cities. Those are the things I do. I'm in constellations, and so
I like it, constellation.
Yes, yeah. Yes.
And how often do you meet or talk or discuss?
We meet according to our project timelines, because whilst we are 26, not everybody's working on the same project at the same time. It really depends on not only the interests of that specific group, but of course not only the budget, but also competencies and capacities. Yeah. One of the projects that I'll be discussing in the context of Utopian Hours this year is a project called Inform All. Where 5 of us, for instance, were engaged, and we would meet very frequently because the project had to do a lot with community engagement in Johannesburg and in Rotterdam. So I can't really give a fixed answer as to how often we meet, but we do have this wonderful studio in Zurich, where I'm based, in Zurich, Switzerland, where we gather, because whilst we do projects, we're thinking about space, we're wanting to, of course, manifest through projects. We're also, the project of Matri-Archi is also about the practice of building relations. A constellation, once again, and that means gathering. That means that gathering really becomes a space not just simply to network and to socialize, but to learn. It's a convivial and very collaborative space to be in.
And what is an example of a project for people to understand what you're working on?
Which project to use?
I don't know.
Well, I'll use a project that I won't be sharing this in my presentation, so that we get a sneak peek into something else. It's a project that we recently did. We were commissioned to do through the Architektur Museum in Munich, Germany, at the Pinakothek der Moderne, quite an exceptional building, housing a few different museums. And essentially, we called our project Home Place. Okay. And we borrowed this title from a text that Bell Hooks writes in 1990. And her text is called Home Place, a Site of Resistance. And she's speaking from a black feminist perspective, and none of us in the collective are coming from an American context, but there are very resonant gestures that she has in that text. And we asked ourselves as spatial practitioners, how do people, particularly black, foreign, migrant women, construct cultures of belonging when they're living in places that they've arrived to under different circumstances, right? And I think migration is a really important topic to constantly keep in mind, given the incredibly globalizing context we live in. And the politics around it. But nonetheless, we designed in the Pinakothek Rotunda space, which is this round, incredibly opulent 20-meter space. We design a cylindrical curtain, a beaded curtain, which you're invited to enter in the same way that you would for free at the Tate Modern. This is not a space that you have to pay to be in. You enter that curtain, and in the center there's a sort of circular seating space that can be rearranged depending on if you'd like to encounter the space individually or with your friend or with your your baby, I don't know. And there's a soundscape in the middle, which you're invited to listen to. And in that soundscape are a set of reflections that come from a set of workshops that we hosted with a group in Munich called Afro Diaspora 2.0. In which we speak to women who have arrived generations ago, who have arrived under different circumstances around how they construct cultures of belonging. How do you construct? Construct is a very architectural term, right? And then we start to pick up on the different ways in which people bring certain things with them. Things that they use to recover, things that they use to welcome. This might be the thing that you use to be hospitable. And there are many overlaps and of course many differences that are new to others, but some of those things we picked up on. I'll take the example of the calabash, which is a sort of dried pumpkin that looks very wooden in its final form, that's used to drink in many sub-Saharan African contexts, or the combination of the fufu stamper, which people use to pound different ingredients to make a specific food, and that food you eat with others. We started to take these objects as inspiration. We scaled them up and down, and we made these unique beads that we 3D printed. Wow. And that was the sort of composition of this curtain. That you would walk through. And I mean, this curtain is probably familiar to many of us in southern environments, but also I think in southern European environments, the beaded curtain that separates inside from outside, that separates kitchen from living space. And it's the curtain that allows you to see who's approaching, to close the gossip or open the gossip, to create your safe space. Wow. It's not the door that locks, that invades, that is intrusive, that conceals. It's a different kind of archetype that gives you room for choice. So I think that's one kind of multi-layered and homecoming, a home place. So this is one multi-layered example I like to use.
Wow. So it contains art, it is storytelling, it's cultural, it's for people to understand about the context, get to know a different culture, different. Beautiful. Okay, nice.
And I like it because it's also, there aren't many places to sit in the Pinakothek de Moderne. In fact, there are no places to sit in the Pinakothek de Moderne unless you have a coffee. And I think this was discussed in the context of Utopian Hours around third space, the importance of third places where you can go and hang out, in the middle of winter. Where do teenagers go?
Yeah, for free.
For free. An accessible space.
Behind consumption.
Right. Yeah. And we found it really interesting to see how people occupied that space, because even though we speak from the perspective of, we come from very different African geographies. We're speaking from a sort of black womanhood perspectives, black feminist perspectives. Our audience are definitely not, they don't resonate with our perspective. But we think it's really interesting to speak about how we meet one another with commonality and really embrace the differences between us. And so it was really interesting to see the different ways in which people interacted with that installation, with that artwork. People who were coming from different parts of Europe, people who identified very differently from those who contributed to the project, but found it to be a really good catalyst for conversation around what it means to make home of a place, and also to make home along a place that's not necessarily where you're born. So you kind of choose. I think choice is really big in our practice.
Beautiful. Now I think it really touch upon, why a lounge a good place is that talking to people that arrived. I love the word arriving, instead of being called expat versus what's that term? I mean, that's not inviting. That's not something that makes you want to stay. It feels like, okay, you're going to leave at one point. Not everyone who arrived here is an expat. So how are we creating belonging if that's something that divides us, So I think, it's beautiful to create social connection and belonging around a group of people. I'd say group of people because they're different groups of people that arrive somewhere.
Yes.
And they all deserve that same kind of attention or embrace, right?
Yes, completely.
Yeah.
And I do think that it's interesting because, through my independent practice, I'm often spending time with the question how to understand safe space in spatial terms. And I think that one workable way to think about this is that, safe space or constructing a sense of belonging is not fixed. It's something that is negotiated, it's contingent, it's relational, and it's contingent on others. It's relational with others. It's negotiated with others. And I find it very interesting because as an architect, we build form. That's not necessarily something that then can suddenly be changed on a daily basis. But I think it becomes interesting when thresholds take on different roles, when spaces can be appropriated according to the social needs and changes of society, which moves much faster at the rate that buildings do. So we're in a business of risk-taking, and I think that it's really exciting to take on those risks instead of sort of, safeguarding that things will move at a slow rate because, in fact, there's so much mixity, and I'm very excited by that.
Yeah. And I also learned that things that are more temporary are easier to create, but sometimes we are looking for these kind of solutions that are here to stay, right?
Yes.
That's why those take more time because people are afraid to take those risks if it's something that is there to stay.
Yes, I agree with you, and I also think that there's a lot of investment in the things that are long-lasting. And at the same time, I don't necessarily want to romanticize temporary spaces. I think that they're so valuable, and I echo your thoughts in that regard. I think they're so valuable because they're easy to set up. There's low barrier to entry. In the Swiss context, and I'm sure it's similar in the Dutch context. If you have a verein or an association, you can quickly set up your statutes. You can quickly open a bank account. You can quickly apply for money, grants, and suddenly you can access a space. What an amazing structure that is malleable. And of course, as you upscale, you have to sort of formalize, institutionalize as the stakes get higher. But I like that there's this low barrier to entry that allows people to access space and to negotiate that. Because I do value spaces that are also long-lasting and have left an impression on people. Because the idea is that we also don't want to demolish we don't want to demolish buildings. So I get excited by this kind of friction that comes with negotiating space.
Yeah. Because even a third place, it needs to feel like home. I mean, you don't want to change homes all the time.
Yes. And of course, yes, I think it's interesting that the idea of a third place is premised on the idea that there's a first and second place. It's a very I think it's a very it's one reading. The first place is the home, the second place is the workplace, and the third place is whatever it's going to be. But if your first place is a violent place and your second place is unlivable, then your third place actually becomes the primary place. And so I also like to borrow language from incredible scholars like Nancy Fraser. She speaks about counterpublics. Counterpublics being, discursive but also spatial arenas in which people who don't necessarily feel like they belong in public space, take it upon themselves to make common space, but it's not necessarily always exclusive. Let's use the example of barbershops, that are often open until 2 a.m. in the context of Zurich. I'm thinking about the time that I stayed in London, and people are not getting their hair cut at 2 in the morning.
They just hang around.
They're hanging out, they feel safe, and as a result, the street is lit, and perhaps that's the route that many people take home because they feel safer.
Oh, yeah.
So I think these are really interesting.
Absolutely. I mean, whenever I walk the dog late at night through a shopping street, I'm like, everything's closed, Like the only thing you can go to is a bar. But what if I don't want to drink or don't want to hang at the bar?
Right.
There's nothing else.
Yes.
So there's so much room for improvement or,
Yes.
to be somewhere with a different purpose at night.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And I think, it's fascinating to think about all of these elements that are also constantly shifting, right? Like a city can offer something so different during the day than it can at night.
Yeah.
In one of the projects that I'll be sharing today, this project's called Inform All. We collaborate with a series of people who are based in Johannesburg. And one of the people that I'm thinking of now, who goes under the name of Dormant Youth, because they're both an architect and a DJ. And they're non-binary, they identify as non-binary. And for them, Johannesburg is infamous. It's known to be a very dangerous place. But for dormant youth, the nighttime is the safest place in Johannesburg. And I found that so curious because, in fact, crafting spaces is really a grassroots initiative. I think the best role that architects can offer is to create an infrastructure that is malleable. An infrastructure that can, offer people...
But I also would love to create these, to showcase, as a storyteller, showcase these parallel lives.
Right.
Because I have neighbors from Johannesburg who tell me, well, my wife cannot let the dog out at night, Imagine her life at night versus the doorman parallel lives.
Yes.
It's just to put that also, to make that a visual. Like,
Yes.
And more aware, like, hey, look, this is reality.
Yes, completely. Reality and also, positionality. I think that it's very fascinating to also understand the differences between hard and soft infrastructure.
Yeah.
So, a place that is terribly lit is often, I would say, often these spaces then become the let's say the perception of fear increases. Absolutely. And sometimes the threat does increase. But I also think that it's interesting to know how soft infrastructure works in relation to that, where people start to refigure what safety then means. As soon as there are eyes on the streets, there's a subversion of that logic, and I think that these are the kinds of contexts I'm interested in, not necessarily because I find them fascinating, but because it's what I grew up in. It's what I grew up in, and I think that, I live between these two different cities, Johannesburg and Zurich. Zurich is completely consolidated, idyllic, beautiful. I mean, the politics are a bit shaky at the moment. Yeah. We know that the world is going through a big political shift. And it looks perfect, and it's very comfortable materially. I think it's really, the urban planning is really exceptional. And then I look at a place like Johannesburg, and from outside, it does, poor material conditions don't always mean that there's no spatial intelligence. And I think that's where people as infrastructure, like Abdomalik Simon speaks of, people as infrastructure becomes a really interesting space to work in as a spatial practitioner, as an urban planner, we're part of these things. So how do we collaborate very seriously with the people that we're occupying the city with?
Nice.
Yeah, I get excited by this.
Very nice. But also nice to live in these two different worlds, and you can, yeah, connect them or take inspiration from and bring back, and
Yes,
puts you up in the sky, but also keeps you grounded.
yes. Stretches you. It's a stretch sometimes. But I think that they're both good places. I think that they're both, yeah, and I don't use it loosely because it's the name of this podcast. I don't use it loosely. I take it very seriously that these are places where there's a lot of latent inspiration lying around the corner. That's what I think a good place offers.
How would you formulate that in one sentence?
A good place?
That's how we finish every conversation.
I think a good place is a place that offers choice and where negotiation is a standard.
Which then means it's collective.
It's collective, yes. So I think a good place I think a good place offers choice, a negotiation, and is collective. We're with each other in the world in a good place.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
This is very inspiring, and so much to think about and to process as well. You work on topics that I have in my mind, but I don't actually do something with. Migration, arriving, and also feels like a call to action that I need to focus more on that group of people and offer them the stage to share. For others to embrace it more and not take it for granted. Good luck with your talk later today.
Thank you.
I hope it is just as inspiring as this conversation on the bench.
I'm happy to be on this bench. Thank you so much.
Very welcome. For everyone watching, I'm going to share the details below, all the information, perhaps a link to the project on the Pinacotheek.
Yes.
Beautiful. Till when is it? Is it still?
It's ended.
It's ended? Okay,
yes.
shame.
But there's a publication that is accessible online.
Okay,
So
okay, great.
I've always-
Okay, I might be in Munich early July, but then I'll just read the publication
You'll
instead.
imagine it.
I'll just imagine the beats. Yeah, wonderful. Have a nice day and talk to you soon. Bye bye.